Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. Welcome to my YouTube channel and a warm welcome to my new subscribers and a big hello to my regulars. I hope you're all well. So a couple of days ago I did a technique with the Big Shot just to show you how to emboss with your stencils. So this time I thought I would come back and do another technique using stencils again because I had such a wonderful response from that video. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to use two of my stencils, Crisp Tulips, which I used in the previous video, and Undergrowth 162. So 162 and 178. So those are two of my stencils from AALLandCreate. And what I'm going to do this time, we're going to embrace our stencils and texture. So how to create texture from your stencils. So I'm using a piece of Pink Frog Smooth Card 300 GSM. And it's a piece of card 4 inches by 6 inches. And the reason that they're that size is then I can use them in my snippets. If you'd like to follow along with my snippets, the idea is they are 15-minute videos, the snippets are, just giving you snippets of ideas that you can either extend or pare back, whichever you want. Now, you can follow the snippets on YouTube. All the snippets from 1 to 40 so far are all there. If you don't want to go on YouTube, you can also go to my group. So let's just find where we are, which is the best way to do it. Let's use the app. So if I use my iPad and I click on my search, you can find Tracy Evans, which is my own Facebook profile, but it won't allow me to add any more Facebook friends. You can follow me, but it won't allow me to add any more Facebook friends because I've got the maximum of 5,000. So I started my own group, Tracy Evans Craft Addicts Create, Share and Inspire. And in there we have lots of ideas, both myself and my lovely followers and design team, of how to use my products in as many varying different ways. Now if you go to albums, you'll find in there's a Tracy Snippets album, and in there you'll find all the snippets that I've done so far. And when you click on one, you'll also find, see more, you'll also find a link to the YouTube. And if you click on that, it'll take you to the YouTube video. Also, if you're looking for more ideas, I do have, if you carry on scrolling down, whew, I'm hot, you have a list of my online workshops that are available to purchase. And in there are 97 workshops that you can choose from, and at the moment I've got an offer on that's buy one get one workshop half price. But also in there, seeing as how we're talking about stencils, there is a stencil workshop that's got loads of different techniques for you, and it's packed with detail, absolutely packed with detail. There's so many different ideas. Let's see more. It's pre-recorded and it's called Delight in Stencils. So just sort of giving you a little bit more information of how I try to inspire you to use your products. So right, let's get back to our demo of stencils and texture. And what I'm going to use for texture this time is the Distress Texture Paste Crackle. And I'm just going to give a few techniques that I use. So I've got my card 4 by 6 inch piece of card. Now if you wish to secure your stencil, you can hold it down with a piece of low tack tape. I don't tend to bother with my texture paste because what I do is I get a really good dollop, so I don't scrimp on the dollop that I take. So I take a really good big dollop and place it and then just spread it. And as soon as I've started to spread it, it will hold that stencil in place. Now, what I don't do is I don't keep going over and spreading it and over and over and over again. What I tend to do is put too much on there initially and just use it like that so that I get some really thick texture on my stencil, and I don't play around with it too much. I'll put in the excess back into my pot, and what I'll do is I'll take it away from the edge of my pot so that that doesn't stick to the edge of the pot, because you want it to be in there and you don't want it to prevent a good seal around your product. You want a good seal around the product. And what I'm going to do is just lift that. Now don't worry, we're not going to waste all this texture paste that is on the stencil. So we've got beautiful texture on there. And what you've got is you've got a deep texture because I haven't scrimped on product. If you want to do it thinner, that's fine, but I tend to like a really good thick layer. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take another piece of Pink Frog Smooth card, and we don't want to waste this. So I'm going to place the stencil back on my clean piece of card, and what I'm going to do is just rub over any of that texture that's still remaining on my stencil. So I'm just rubbing over, and it's sort of cleaning my stencil in a way. Pick up any excess you've got on your non-stick craft sheet, and pick any extra you've got on your palette knife and just rub that over your stencil, because you don't want to waste any of that at all. So use every bit that you've got. Okay, so there's hardly anything on that palette knife now. I've not wasted anything. I'm just getting rid of the dry little bits of dregs. So what I've done is I've just rubbed that over with my finger. Let's lift this with my pair of scissors, and let me just place this just there. So what I've got now is I've got another print, which is the leftovers that was on my stencil. Look how good that print is. Leftovers with my stencil with a finger. And that's the one that has got a thick dimensional layer. Okay, so place them on one side to dry. So what I'm going to do then is then take the stencil again, because there still might be something on there. So let's take the stencil again onto a third piece of clean card. And I've got wipes that are just natural water. So let's get a clean one. There's no plastic in them at all. So what I'm going to do then is just rub over the stencil and just see if there's anything left on there. If there isn't, it doesn't matter. But let's not waste anything that we've got on the card. Let's lift that up again. Lift it up again. And I've now got a third background. So I've not wasted one bit of that texture. And I have done one before so that we can have a look at it when it's all dry. So let's just clean up our mess. There's nothing I can clean up now and create another background, because that texture paste on my non-sticks craft sheet is dry. So I can clean up the hard bits that we've got, but I've not wasted anything. Now there's hardly anything on my stencil, so I can just give that a little bit of a wipe just to get rid of any crusty bits. But there's nothing on there, absolutely nothing. So we've sort of collected every bit of texture that we want, that we've used. Give your hands a little bit of a clean, because obviously I've got my fingers in there and used my fingers, but it cleans up nice and easily, no problem at all. So what I'm going to show you now is the backgrounds when they're dry. So this is the Crackle background. How good does that look? Just brilliant. And that's with your stencil. And then I did the same with this background, with this stencil, Undergrowth. rather pleased with how this has come out. Look at them birds. Look at those birds. Just wonderful. Just look at that. Absolutely wonderful. And if you want, you can place some matte medium over there just to protect your crackle if you wish. It's entirely up to you if you want to place some over there. Also, if we look at some of the second generation prints, it's very difficult to sort of hold this up for you. But this, if we listen, that's textural as well. And how many backgrounds did we do? I even got a tiny bit of waste off, and you can see it's still crackled. Even the tiniest bit crackled. I did exactly the same with rubbing off the excess with the birds, and if I get closer, you can still see there's some crackle. How amazing is that? Just amazing. Right, what if, let me just grab a re-inky. There we go. So we're just going to grab a couple of products to show you how to colour, preferably if we look in the right place. Let me have a look. Okay, so normally if I was using any sprays, I would make sure that I was using a box, like a shoe box or something like that, just to make sure that I didn't spray everywhere in my craft room. However, if I put everything in a box, you're not going to see it demo. You can't see what I'm doing, so we won't do that. What I'm going to do is with the bird one, I'll use the frayed burlap distress oxide spray. Just give that a little bit of a shake like this, not up and down, side to side, just so that it doesn't come out the top. And then I've got the frayed burlap distress oxide re-inky, and that also has got that ball bearing in there. Okay, so we'll get a spritzer bottle with water with our distress sprayer. You can use any sprayer, whatever you've got, and you can use any colouring medium that you have. But I like to use the re-inkers as well because they're concentrated, so they're wonderful. So if I just put one little blob there, one little blob there, you can see I'm hardly using anything. So I wouldn't say that that was a lot of product, not at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spritz that with water, and those of you that follow the wonderful Tim Holtz will know that his products react with water. And what I like about the re-inkers is I can really control where that's going. Can you see how it's puddling into the crevices of the texture? And you can just control it yourself. So what you can do is you can leave it like that, and you've got an instant vintage feel to your project. What I personally like to do is allow that to dry and then go back in again with a bit more, just to get some darker, intense feel to the brown, and it really goes in the crevices of the crackle and really emphasises that. And I will use that in a snippet. So we can do the same with this little bird one, which has only got a fine crackle because I rubbed that off with my finger. So let's have a look what the re-inky does with that. So you can see I'm hardly using any product, but it's highly concentrated, which is why I love them so much. Not just for re-inking my ink pads. So I can spritz that, and look how it sort of spreads beautifully out. And and if you've got it a bit concentrated, just wet it a little bit more. It's very forgiving, and you can just, now remember, this is the one where I used my finger and just added the crackle. And it's got very fine crackles. And what you'll notice is when we come to do the snippet and all this is dry, you see I can just tip the excess off onto my kitchen roll. Tracy can't get her words out. But also with the frayed burlap, as it starts to dry and the more you spritz with water, you get these like grey turquoise effects as well. So it works really nicely. So let's leave that on one side. But that's what I love about the re-inkers. They're very controllable. But yes, let's use our sprays. Now, I would recommend using the sprays definitely in a box because it'll stop the bloom that you get where it just sprays in different places. But what I like to do is spritz a couple of times. There's no need to get it everywhere. And then what I like to do is spritz with water. Now this obviously is a more spread out kind of effect, but with the sprays you get a beautiful, if you spritz it with water, you really get that colour change. Let me see if you can see this in the camera. You really get that colour change and it works beautifully. The more you spritz it with water, the more that colour change happens. Can you see it here? Where the colour change happens. But my stencil works beautifully and we will create a snippet from this. Just look at that crackle. Amazing. I'm not one for faffing where I need 55 layers for crackle. For me, one simple step crackle. What more do you need? Superb. Simplicity in itself. Just wonderful. I like simple, effective ideas. Now, as you can see, this was the re-inker. Now, it's dark here, so I can spritz with a bit more water. And the more it stands and the more I spritz with water, the more that colour changes. And I personally like to let that dry on a piece of kitchen roll. And if I want to add more intensity of colour, I will. But look how the spray... They've all got all products. If you enjoy using your products, there has to be a reason you enjoy them, that you're passionate about them. Stencils I adore. That's why I eventually designed some to go with my stamps. And just look at that. That bird looks amazing. And if you wanted to, you could actually cut these out. Make sure you sort of go a little bit away from the edge and you could cut those out and make embellishments. Absolutely love it. Now let's go back to the leaf one with the re-inker. Can you see? It's got some of that colour change in the cracks. Now what I can do, let's just place that on one side, is I can go back with that re-inker and say I wanted a little bit of darkness there, and say I wanted a little bit darker here and there. I just love it because you don't need much at all. And then I can spritz again. And you can see I'm just using sort of a gentle spritz. I'm not sort of going over the top. The reason being is I don't want to dilute this layer too much. But what I want to do is I want to spritz it with water because I want it to give me the reaction of the changing colour. And I also want some of that to dry within the crevices so that it gets really deep and dark. The only reason that I'm spritzing with water is to get some of that reaction with colour. So what you've got there are 3 ideas to use your stencils. We've then got some vintage feel that we can create a pop of colour with that if we wish. But look at that bird one. That's just with a couple of spritzes from the Distress Oxide spray. I mean, look at that. I'm sorry, but I adore my stencil. That stencil, when you look at it, let's just bring the packaging in. When you look at that stencil and the results that you get from that, absolutely love it. And I will use that in my snippets. Absolutely will use that in my snippets. I just adore it. So again, if you want, you can also, so if we move them out of the way, you see the bird one? If you want to mix your products, I can, oh, I'll just put that on my fingers there. I can now add a little bit of the spray if I wish. That gives more of that blue tone. And just give a little bit more of a spritz. Just bring in that darkness because we don't want that. There we go. And I'm going to leave those on the copier paper, just doing their, on the copier paper, on the kitchen roll, doing their thing. And I'll come back to them probably in a couple of hours and then I can work with them. So thank you all for stopping by and thank you for subscribing. I hope you find that useful and I will be back with more ideas. Love to all. See you all soon. Bye for now.